Portion this morning comes from the book of Nehemiah, chapter 6, verse 10 to 14. Allow me to read in your hearing. Now, when I went into the house of Shemaiah, the son of Delaiah, son of Mehetabel, who was confined to his home, he said, "Let us meet together in the house of God within the temple. Let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. They are coming to kill you by night." But I said, Should such a man as I run away? And what man such as I could go into the temple and live? I will not go in. And I understood and saw that God had not sent him, but he had pronounced a prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. For this purpose he was hired, that I should be afraid and act in a way and sin. And so they could give me a bad name in order to taunt me. Remember Tobiah and Sanballat, O my God, according to these things that they did. And also the prophetess Noadiah and the rest of the prophets who wanted to make me afraid. Um, the attacks on Nehemiah became even more sinister and malevolent. Um, you know, the devil will not stop until he destroys you. Um, Nehemiah's troubles became more sinister and more insidious. If the devil cannot destroy you, he will join you. And it's amazing how much you must be connected to God. You cannot trust the arm of flesh. You cannot trust in man, because even good friends, best friends, can fail you. Nehemiah, he decided to visit a friend, someone he considered to be a friend, Shemaiah. Um, one of, in fact, um, Nehemiah called on Shemaiah at a time when the prophet was shut in at his home. Um, and you would think that visiting a friend, you could be safe with a professed man of God. Maybe he wanted to share his problems. And sometimes, sadly, I say sadly, you cannot even trust professed men of God. Shemaiah, and you would see not just Shemaiah, but you had, what's the other name again? Noadiah, the prophetess, and the rest of the prophets. These were professed men of God. Um, Nehemiah thought that he was at least safe going to his house and 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 share his problems. And that's why, folks, you have to always be connected to God, because the devil will try to destroy you, if not from outside in, from inside out. And I have discovered that you are only safe with God. I want to say this again, and I want you to write that down. You are safest with God. It doesn't matter how much you trust in someone. It doesn't matter how long someone have been your friend. The devil can get into their mind. You got to stay connected with God and ask God to always show you and save you and protect you and guide you, because human beings are volatile. The best of us have our bad days, and we are vulnerable to satanic influences and ploys. And we can fail each other, betray each other, lie on each other. We can malign each other, criticize each other. When we are ready, we will kill each other just because we are a tool in the hand of the devil. You think church people are safe? Wait until they get on a committee. Listen, sometimes we can really be something else. And you know your friend when your name come up on a committee for a position that they want, but you are nominated for. Don't trust in the human flesh, because Nehemiah, he trusted in Shemaiah. Not understand that Shemaiah, a man of God, was hired by the enemy, Sanballat and Tobiah. Can you imagine? Sanballat and Tobiah had friends inside the church. Even the man of God they hired. It's amazing that these men, they tried everything to get Nehemiah. And now they said, we can't get through with him, so we're going to find one of his own people. Yea, even the prophet. At least he will trust in the man of God. But Shemaiah was paid to initiate this plot against Nehemiah. In fact, he said to Nehemiah, let us meet in the house of God. Listen, can you imagine? Can you imagine that this man, Shemaiah the prophet, was willing to conspire with Sanballat and Tobiah and bring Nehemiah in the house of God? Do you know what we do in the house of God? You know, listen to me. We've lost our sanctity for the house of God today. People curse each other, fight each other. People criticize each other. People do all kind of ungodly things in the house of God. Sometimes I think if God really treats us the way we treat his house, a lot of us would not be alive today. This prophet conspired with Sanballat and Tobiah. And now he's bringing Nehemiah in the house of God, not to pray. You thought he was bringing him there to pray, to ask God to deliver him. You thought he was bringing him there to lay his burden before the Lord. He was bringing Nehemiah there for his death. And sometimes you are not even safe I say sadly, sadly, in the house of God. A place where you think people have your back. A place where you think that you are protected. Sometimes you cannot even find safety among your own brethren. Come on. Listen, brethren, I wish I could preach this sermon this morning. Where can you run to if not the house of God? Nehemiah thought, at least I can go to the prophet, pour out my problems. Sanballat and Tobiah, they are troubling me on every side. They recently tried to kill me. Where can I go to if not the house of God? And now you are trying to go to the man of God, and he himself is on the same side with the enemy. You think church is safe? I want to tell you this morning, the only place that is safe is Jesus. How many times we have used the house of God to bring each other down and bring the name of God into disrepute. That is what Shemaiah the prophet was about to do, using the house of God. But you see, folks, what is interesting here, what is interesting here is this. Shemaiah was paid, and he was even, he said, let's meet in the house of the Lord and let us close the doors of the temple because they are coming to kill you by night. It was another attempt. When they could not accuse him of being a political rebel, they tried to make him a religious transgressor. You see, Nehemiah was not a priest. And here was this so-called prophet, which we now know is a false prophet, suggesting that he should go into the temple as a victim seeking asylum, misusing God's house and violating the temple's prohibitions, which forbade access to the holy place by anyone other than a priest. The prophet's suggestion about closing the temple doors suggests that Shemaiah intended either to lure the governor into an area reserved exclusively for the priests with the doors closed, and at least say that Nehemiah had violated the holiness rules. Robbed of witnesses, Nehemiah had only God on his side. Only God. Because this was a perfect trap. And then, maybe while in there with the doors closed, he would call for Sanballat and Tobiah to come and to perform their pernicious actions. Oh, no, listen, brethren, let me tell you this. Don't trust nobody. Only trust God and your spouse. Because not even in the church sometimes you're safe. Don't trust in God, and you are safest with God. But thank God, Nehemiah was connected to God. Nehemiah was sensitive to danger, and he realized that this is not of God. Nehemiah said, for this purpose he was hired. He realized that God had not sent this prophet and that he was prophesying against him because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. He was hired to intimidate him and make him commit a sin by doing this. He was about to he wanted to malign Nehemiah's moral integrity and defame his character. Although Jerusalem governor was well endowed with material possession, he believed that a good name is more than desirable than riches. Nehemiah, the enemy knew that Nehemiah was not likely to end his commitment to his people once the walls had been rebuilt. And so they wanted now to malign his character. And who best can they choose but the man of God? But God shows you. God, God reveals to you things. There are some places that people are inviting you that you should not go because God shows you that that's not your company. There are some things, not every invitation that people give you, you have to accept because you think they mean well for you. They don't. There are some appointments that people give you that you ought to say no. Nehemiah was given an invitation and God said to him, no, don't go there. Don't accept that. You think that they mean you well, but they mean you harm. Listen, folks, you got to stay connected with God. You got to let God lead you. Sometimes God must show you what people wants to do. Sometimes there are some promotions you got to say no to. Sometimes there are some calling that you got to say no to. Not every invitation is of God. And it is only God can show you the evil intention of people. And some people come smiling and shaking your hands and looking all nice. They are wolves in sheep clothing. You gotta let God show you people. And don't just take things for granted. That's why it is so important to stay on your knees, brothers and sisters. Ask God to reveal things to you. Ask God to show people up, and God will reveal the motives of people. God will show you that what seems nice on the surface, like Shemaiah, is not so. Because oftentimes, when you're not following God and following the words of others, you can find yourself in trouble. But you see, when you're following God, God will show you what people want to do with you and for you. And God will help you He will save you from trouble. Thank God. Nehemiah was connected to God. That even though given an invitation by the man of God, thank God, he was listening to God's voice. And that's why he prayed. He prayed. He prayed even for his enemies. He gradually makes a discover that Shemaiah is not the only prophet. Listen to me. You thought it was one prophet. In those days, Jerusalem had many prophets. Shemaiah was one of them. Sanballat and Tobiah hired all the prophets. They hired all the prophets and prophetesses. Nehemiah recognized he did not just have Shemaiah against him. He also had Noadiah and other prophets who were manipulated by the enemy to lead the governor to sin. They have mobilized a destructive assault on Nehemiah. But he responds by not attacking them, but by seeking God. And that's the point I want to end on. When people try to get at you, don't get back at them. Go on your knees. Nehemiah is determined that God is the righteous judge. The Lord knows their heart. He knows their allegiance. He knows their corrupt motives. He knows their damaging intentions. And God will deal with them. Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem and Shemaiah and Noadiah and all the rest of the prophets, God's justice will deal with them. They can devise all plans that they want. When God is ready, he's going to deal with them. Listen to me, folks, don't get even. Get on your knees. Nehemiah could have gone on a rampage and gone in the temple and caused a big havoc. No! Nehemiah could have written letters of protest against the religious fraternity in Jerusalem. But he did not. He prayed. He prayed because prayer can work. I want to tell somebody this morning, your best defender, your best lawyer is prayer. You don't need nobody to defend you. Your knees will speak when you are assailed and buffeted, when the problems of life and when the lies and ill intention of others is having the better of you. Pray. Pray. Because your prayer can work. When you start praying, I tell you, people will think it's a curse they put on them. No, it's no curse. Don't play with a prayer warrior. Don't fight, pray. In fact, I should say, fight on your knees. Nehemiah, he did not wage a retaliative battle. He went on his knees and he said, "Oh God, my Lord, remember Tobiah and Sanballat, because I know when you're ready for them, remember them and all those who want to make me afraid." Listen, brethren, pray for your enemies. Pray for those you know who don't love you. Pray and pray that God remember them. Don't listen, you don't even have to tell God to deal with them. He will deal with them. In fact, I've discovered that most times you have to ask God to have mercy on them. Because God's justice is sure. It is sometimes slow, but it is sure. I want to encourage someone this morning. Your only safety is with God. And remember, your best defense is prayer. Father in heaven, this morning, oh God, help us to trust in you when buffeted, even from within. And may we see prayer as our best defense. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.